work study session to order. Are there any amendments or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, then we will accept the agenda as written. First order of business is our dual language program.
Perfect, thank you. I apologize on that. Just hit my mic. So, and this goes back to the summer and kind of throughout the year, the board has asked, like, we want an update on dual language. We want to know more about it. We want to do a program audit. And that mixed really, really well with Gina, who's going through her admin program as one of this is a program audit. So I thought this was a great opportunity to not only go through and have somebody on the outside looking at the dual language, but also apply to her schoolwork as well. So, so I've asked Gina and Matt to come today and actually inform the board. Gina went through the process, the things that she has to do to evaluate that program. She's going to go over that first, and then Matt's going to go and talk about, for the last year and a half, we've been having the dual language committee meetings and that process and what that looks like and where we're at in strengthening a big part of the what we do here in NISA. And so I'm going to have Gina come first, and she's going to present a lot of things, her findings, and then open it up for questions for you. Okay?
Are you okay if I just present from here and you can see it up there?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so obviously the purpose of the evaluation was to really take a look at the process and implementation of the dual language program. So when I was talking to our staff, we didn't start at the first step, which is our needs assessment, but moved forward into what are things looking like now? How are things running? Are we doing things the way that we planned on? So when we looked at that, we looked at using a qualitative approach, which means that I was using like survey data, talking with staff, doing some rubrics as I did some observations in the classroom. And then obviously our key stakeholders that were involved in this were the students, families, teachers, administrators, and all of you. And then also all of those who contribute to the program's success. So the evaluation question that I was looking at when I was doing this was, to what extent is the dual language immersion program at NISA Elementary School being implemented with fidelity across all grade levels? So in order to observe this in action, I would go down to the school, and I was able to get into the classrooms a few times and just see what they were doing. What does it look like? Are they implementing, if they're supposed to be the Spanish only classroom, are they implementing Spanish during that whole time? If they're the English only classroom, are they implementing that English instruction at the same time? The strengths that came out of this were that there were positive outcomes occurring in each of the classrooms, and they aligned with the implementation rubric, which I will share here in just a moment. Parents on the surveys expressed high satisfaction with the quality of instruction in the program, and the biggest challenge was, despite our best efforts, and that was having the teachers send out the survey, the principals put it on the Facebook page and on their website, we still didn't get a huge response in our surveys. And we had surveys sent out in Spanish and English. Miguel helped with the Spanish surveys, translated those for me and everything. So this is what our exemplary program implementation looks like. So if you look to the far right, where it says proficient, that's what we were hoping to see in all the classrooms. And for the most part, when I was doing my observations, that's what I saw. I saw exemplary program implementation. Now, I'm not talking about teaching strategies necessarily, but that they were implementing the program as designed according to what was in the handbook. The criteria that was used, translanguaging, cultural responsiveness, instructional strategies, assessment and monitoring, and collaborative implementation, those were all areas that I spoke with Shane and Trisha and Brian and Matt about prior to creating this rubric. And then for each area that they had beginning, developing, and proficient points. There were only a couple of areas that I saw that we were maybe developing, and some of that was that in instructional strategies. And most of that was with those newer teachers as well, which you would expect that they would still be developing in those areas. But overall, they scored a 14.5, which indicates, according to the results of the rubric, that this is an exemplary program implementation. Any questions about that? If you have questions, I'll take questions at the end, but feel free to just pop in any thoughts or questions you may have too.
About how many classrooms were you able to visit and what levels?
K-5, I went to all the dual language classrooms and, yeah, was able to do observations in all the rooms. Yes. Some I spent more time in than others, but just because they were doing something that, you know, maybe they were just getting ready to head out to recess or something that wasn't educational at that moment, you know. So there were times that I only was able to stay in for a little bit of time, but I saw good things happening in all the classrooms. This is the summary of teacher feedback. So based on the survey questions that were sent out, the strengths that the teachers reported was they have adequate materials most of the time. 67% of the students are progressing in both languages. 67% of the teachers feel that families are supported or somewhat supported and involved with the program. The overall perception was that teachers generally feel somewhat confident, but have some mixed perceptions of the program's overall effectiveness, primarily rating it as either neutral or effective. Now that kind of surprised me, that the teachers themselves rated it with some concern. And I think that's probably just some self-doubt of what they're doing as well. I know those newer teachers, especially when they marked areas that they needed to improve on, it was just direction on how do I teach a dual language classroom. So, you know, maybe thinking about that a little bit for the future. But the challenges that they noted on their survey was the curriculum alignment with goals of the dual language immersion program. So obviously we're trying to use curriculum and translate that curriculum as best as they can, but in some cases they didn't feel like that was the most effective. Teachers often highlighted insufficient professional development, particularly regarding strategies specific to dual language instruction. So I think that's the area that, you know, like I talked about, those newer teachers in particular were coming in and they were like, well, nobody's really taught me how to be a dual language teacher. Sometimes they just come in, they are able to speak Spanish, and we just kind of hijack them and put them in those rooms and forget that they sometimes need that explicit instruction as well. Common challenges repeatedly identified include time constraints and a need for clear goals and resources for the program. And I think that we're always going to find that in any program, is that there's definitely going to be time constraints, not enough time to get everything done that we want to do. This is a summary of the administrators' feedback. The program's strengths: administrators acknowledge teachers' strong, consistent engagement of students in both English and Spanish. There's systematic monitoring and comprehensive assessment of students' language proficiency and academic progress. So they're constantly checking that data, doing those benchmark assessments, and using those progress monitoring tools. Teachers consistently and effectively incorporate those translanguaging strategies where they're using that, those bilingual strategies with those students. Cultural integration within the instructional practice is generally extensive, enriching language and content learning, so they're also talking about the culture in those classrooms. And then the collaboration among the program staff is perceived as strong and systematic. The identified areas for improvement, based on the administrator's feedback, is cross-departmental collaboration is considered only moderately effective, so they'd like to see more collaboration with our English-only teachers so that we can make sure that the classrooms are being run in similar ways that are effective for both. The administrator suggested enhancing professional development and instructional guidance through a clearly updated dual language program handbook, which I believe you guys are working on already. So some of the suggestions work out perfectly with what they're already doing. And so that was really great to hear. There's a need for additional time for planning and instructional preparation for dual language teachers. And I think that's really important because getting them together, getting them to have that time to collaborate is going to be key to making this successful. This is just a little bit about our enrollment. You can see what our enrollment by diversity looks like. So currently the program enrolls about 300 students K through 5, and then uses that 50-50 instructional model so that they receive equal exposure to both languages. These are some of the data that I took out of the survey data. So this is, for example, some of the questions that were on the survey data for the parents. What grade is your child in? You can see what grade levels were filling these out. And it was in Spanish and English. So we had a mix of both veteran and new families that were providing answers. The great thing was that the majority of parents rated their child's bilingual experience as good or excellent. There were a few that marked that they were in the average range, but overall I think that they're pretty happy with the program. Nearly 90% of the parents who filled out the English survey rated their child's bilingual learning as good or excellent, and nearly 78% of the parents who filled out the Spanish survey rated their child's bilingual learning as good or excellent. It seemed like the difference between those two is there was more feedback about the English students using the Spanish at home than there was about the Spanish-speaking students using English at home. They weren't as comfortable using English at home. Sorry, I've been fighting this cold forever, so. Then this was a question about how comfortable is your child using that language at home, like I just talked about, so you can see on there that that's an area that we probably need to work on, is giving them some time to actually just talk to each other, have those conversations where it's not the academic language, but it's really conversational language that we're expecting from them to give them that comfortability. Parents expressed high satisfaction with the program's quality, and nearly 50% are satisfied or very satisfied, and 97% that said that they would recommend the dual language program to other families. So I thought that was great to have 97% that said that they would recommend it to others. Areas of need that came out of these surveys was the school's communication. So again, it kind of aligns with what we're finding out through our parent surveys and our focus groups for our strategic planning. There's always a need for more communication. So one of the things that we can beef up is our communication about the dual language program and the guidance provided to those families. A number of survey comments reinforce the need for better communication. For instance, one parent wrote, "I know that there are mixed feelings, maybe open communication about concerns would help." And I think what they're referring to about those mixed feelings is kind of that subject that's been brought up a lot, is when they're done with the dual language program at the elementary school. It's such a great program where they get 50-50 in those classes. Then what happens when they go to middle school and high school? How do we continue that? And that's what Matt and his team are working on right now. Another parent suggested that just more communication, and one requested packets or online materials to assist with pronunciation so they can better support their child's learning at home. So those are some things to think about, is that, you know, they're giving that instruction in the classroom, but how can we help parents to be able to help their kids at home as well? This is the winter benchmark data. Shane provided this for me. And you can see that each section is separated not individually by classrooms, but grouped by the English-only classrooms and the dual language classrooms. I did notice, and you'll notice as you look at this data, that the English-only classrooms do seem to be doing a little bit better on their benchmark data. And I would kind of expect that because the kids in those other classrooms are also learning another language along with those academic skills. But you can see that there are some areas, for example, 5th grade dual language classroom is doing better in that reading proficiency. And the 3rd grade, you can see is very similar there and actually doing better in the math proficiency. So there's always going to be, you know, those ups and downs, but overall they're pretty similar in most areas. I think 1st grade, you can see that math proficiency in that 1st grade dual language classroom is a little bit lower. But then you have to also think about that time in 1st grade and all the things you're learning in 1st grade and learning another language, that maybe that's going to be a little bit behind. So what I thought was reassuring was that as they got into those upper grade levels, those scores seemed to align more with the English-only classrooms. And then this final assessment of the needs. A major theme was the need for more Spanish language resources like books and apps for students to be able to take home and utilize. Parents showed interest in family engagement opportunities, so there was a section where they could actually put in what would be some things that would help you to feel like this was more successful for your students, and they wanted more family engagement opportunities, parent workshops, bilingual family events, those kinds of things. And then in terms of academic balance, a couple of parents raised points about core subjects and consistency and how they're maintaining the dual language classroom versus the English-only classroom. For example, it said one parent noted that the English-only program is ahead in their math curriculum. So they must have, you know, sometimes they have a child in an English only and a child in the dual language where they can do that comparison, or they have friends that have their kids in those other classes, and just seeing where they are. So I think that would be something that as administrators that we could also talk to our teams about to make sure that they're all, you know, correlating and doing that together. Another mentioned that some years the Spanish instruction was less consistent, and they desired consistent Spanish teaching. Some teachers are good with lots of improvements made, then a year or a teacher slows down progress. And we see that even in our English-only classrooms. Sometimes you have a super dynamic teacher that your kid just learns a ton in, and another teacher that may not be as dynamic, but I think that those are things that we'll definitely keep an eye on and be aware of.
Isn't that kind of compounded by, like, they'll have the same teacher for 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th,
Sure.
or however that works. So if they do have a teacher who's not as proficient or is a newer teacher, they're really getting 2 years of less instruction than the other program. Is there a way to, instead of having them swing up, have the teachers cross over? Do we have, like in grade school, how many Spanish immersion teachers do we have?
One at every grade level.
One at every grade level. So instead of having them swing up with that teacher, can they cross over to another teacher?
Yeah, and I think we stopped looping this year, and
Oh,
so
okay.
this is
Okay.
kind of first year work. The lower grades are still doing it at kindergarten first, but then from there we're not looping.
All right, well, forget what I just said.
Yeah.
See, they already took that into
Yeah.
consideration.
Perfect.
And then also the concerns about just continuous alignment of dual language curriculum with grade level standards and consistency across different teachers and years. So like you said, you know, having your kids in a teacher that may not have as much experience as another can make a difference. But sometimes those right out of school teachers are fantastic too. So you just never know. But it gives us some ideas of where to go and gives us some ideas of how people are feeling with the program. And I was just really pleased to see that overall, it looks like they're feeling pretty good about it. And then with the things that they're doing with the dual language committee, it looks like great things are on the way. So the next steps, like I said, we're looking ahead and wanting to see the program continue into middle school and high school. And then just making sure that we have that pathway to continue that bilingual education.
So are you saying it's not continuing to middle school right now, or?
Well, currently, it's not run the same way, that's for sure. But I know that that's something that Matt's
That we'll
gonna,
look at in a moment.
yeah, talk about more here because they're going to make a plan and they're working on those steps now. And then here are the key strengths. We always want to end on that positive. So again, language progress, quality of instruction, benefit of bilingual education, and the program implemented with fidelity. And that was a big piece, was that when I saw things happening, I saw fidelity being implemented in those classrooms. Okay. Any questions?
Has there been any comment from our Spanish-speaking families? At least this is what I noticed when I was growing up, because my grandparents would always speak in Japanese to me, but I would always answer in English. And I noticed with a lot of our Spanish-speaking families that parents will speak to the child in Spanish, and the child will automatically answer in English. Is this happening, or are they reverting back to speaking only in Spanish when they're at home?
Well, I think that, you know, the results of the survey, it didn't specifically ask that, but what it did ask was, do they feel comfortable speaking the other language at home? And that was one of the things that our Spanish-speaking families noted, that they weren't as comfortable speaking English at home. So, you know, like I said, we can start working on that conversational English, giving them those skills, and then also maybe telling them, here's an opportunity for you to help your parents to learn English by speaking to them in English, you know, those kinds of things. So, yeah, definitely good information to help us to get there.
The math comment was interesting because isn't all of math now taught in English? Is
Math?
any of that taught in the
No,
Spanish now?
it's taught in Spanish.
Yeah.
Is it taught in?
Part of it is English.
Yeah,
I think
they do both.
But it is, there's several grade levels for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that ever, because it seemed like Madison was taught math in Spanish, and then I'm pretty sure Sadie was only taught it in English.
We
Maybe
did,
that's changed this year.
no, we did have,
Something.
was full Spanish math, and then it flipped up and the Spanish just supported math.
Okay,
And now I think it's a little bit more balanced between the two.
okay.
So we have had some swings on that.
Whitney would be better sitting and listening to this than now. She knows it way better than I do.
Yeah, but I think it's important that this information get out to parents so they can
Yeah.
review it, have that kind of link on our website so they can even give us more feedback when they review it and get that feedback loop going. Say, hey, here's some things I've already heard. One of the issues that people have is there seems to be a divide between dual language and English only, right? And for 6 years in elementary, those kids stay together and it creates like two different kind of factions, and finding a way to get those kids together, because as soon as they hit 6th grade, right, we're all there, and so that's one of the things I've gotten some feedback is how can we do a better job of mixing those kids earlier, so it's not a have-not situation. So.
But doesn't that happen, I mean, isn't that true of going from elementary school into middle school, is that in elementary school you are kind of segregated into a class? I mean, all of.
Yeah, what usually happens though in elementary, that you do get some shuffling if you have all 4 English only, right? You usually every year you'll get some shuffling in kids. Here, I mean, those 50 kids, right? So if it's 100, those 50 kids stay together,
Yes.
right? And so that's just something is how can we do a better job of creating better like overall climate and culture in there? And so that's what we're working on.
I noticed in your report that you use the word communication a lot, that, you know, the families were talking about communication. And can that be narrowed down to more, do parents want more communication about what's happening in the class, or more communication about how it's going to move forward?
It seems like what we've heard mostly, and I'll talk about this a little bit, but if there was one element of communication that could be improved or should be improved with the program, it's how we describe the program and the program offerings to parents, particularly after the elementary school. I think we do it at the elementary level, but then parents just don't know what it's like after that at middle school and high school. And so we have to do a better job of getting out that information to parents who know what's coming at middle and high school. For example, we have an annual presentation, I mean, that was kind of starting into my thing, an annual presentation for parents of incoming kindergartners prior to kindergarten roundup, so that they can make an informed decision about either enrolling or applying for the dual language program, since it is a lottery still, versus English only. And so that presentation allows them to help make that decision, but we don't have that for the kids moving and the parents moving from 5th to 6th grade. But this year we will have that for the first time, so we'll have a presentation for those parents too, so they know exactly what middle school looks like in the dual language program, and also what, not only what it looks like now, but what the plans are for it next year, the year after that, and how it looks in high school too.
I thought what was really neat was when Madison started, we were at the dual language meeting before the year started, and the information presented was that they are behind until 4th grade, and then they spring ahead. And that's what those numbers show. They at least show that trend line.
Yes.
Is there. And the scary thing is, and I know this probably gets into what you're going to talk about, is the scary thing is that the trend line is they finally cross into excelling in 4th grade, and then we drop the program off.
Right.
At 6th grade. It causes a little issue there. But it was neat to see those numbers reflected that you talked about however many years ago. But
I also have my whole report. If you want a copy of this, I can email this to you, but this is 60-some pages that goes into a lot more detail, and my professor went through it with a fine-tooth comb, so.
So one of the details I was curious about it, you showed overall in the program, we're about 65% Hispanic, 35% white. Is that, I mean, that's the whole number. Is there a trend we're seeing from like 5th grade to kindergarten? Do we have a lot closer to a 50-50 mix at 5th grade? I realize the community's not 50-50, but is it a higher number, and that's getting down to where we've got a higher concentration of one race or the other at lower levels? The concern there is, are we creating segregation?
Right.
Well, the program, really the division in the program is less along racial lines and more along linguistic lines. At least that's what we try to do, because the idea in an ideal dual language program would be 50% English speakers and 50% Spanish speakers. What we have really are kind of 3 different categories. We have native English speakers, native Spanish speakers, and then those are in some way bilingual. Maybe fully bilingual or partially bilingual in one language or the other. Typically it's Spanish, of course. We don't have very many native English speakers who speak Spanish too. And so what we try to do, in beginning kindergarten is create a linguistic mix as well as we can. So for example, in the lottery situation at kindergarten, we have 3 different buckets, I guess you'd say, of students. And we pull from each one, so we get an even linguistic mix. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
So if like we have 20 openings, we want theoretically a third of those to come from each of those buckets. A third native English, a third native Spanish, and a third both. And so it's not quite answering your question, but I know you're asking about what the makeup is of the classes, and it's more along those linguistic lines than racial.
Okay. And we're getting that good mix.
Yeah, we are fortunate to be able to do that. So,
Okay.
I mean, and the reason why that's an ideal situation is because the students, can be teachers for each other, essentially. If you're a native Spanish
Right.
speaker, I don't speak any Spanish, and I'm next to you in the classroom, I'm going to learn from you, and vice versa. Yeah, so,
Great.
yeah, okay. Are you setting me up there, Mr. Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing. Okay, so what what I'm gonna talk about mainly is the structure of the program now and what our plans are for the program going forward. And I think just broadly, from what Gina has described, and we have a strong and solid program at the K-5 level. After 5th grade, it's really a pretty different situation, and so our focus for growing this program and strengthening this program, not that we don't have growth and improvement, of course, to do at the K-5 level, without a doubt we do, but we really need to grow the program and strengthen it beginning in 6th grade. And the reason why that's so critical to continue it beyond K-5 is because of what all the research says, which is that it takes about 7 years for students being in this program in order to cross over, as Dustin was mentioning, and reach parity with their English-only counterparts. So it takes into middle school really to do that. You're getting close after about 5th grade, but really 7th grade, 6th grade. So we have to have strength in the program in middle school. It's just kind of a forward here. But let's just start by looking at the program goals down there on the bottom right. And these are goals that this program in NISA has had since the very beginning, to create students who come out at the far end bilingual, biliterate, and multicultural. Those are broad program goals, not only for NISA's program, but really for dual language programs generally. And then it becomes more specific based on the nature of the program. And bilingualism really means just fluency in 2 languages. The ability to orally use 2 languages, to get by, to converse, to do all the practical things you do in life with your oral language. The biliteracy really refers more to reading and writing and really academic language. We expect students to come out at that other end not only academically literate in English, but also in Spanish. And then finally that multicultural piece, which is more than just cultural appreciation or appreciation of another culture, but really just understanding and being immersed in that culture, having a true multicultural experience. The other 2 goals are specific more to our program and would be at the far end, the graduation end, and that is the seal of biliteracy and the certificate of interpretation. And we're hoping that, and based on the results that we've seen, we're really believing that the current juniors, who are the first class of students to go through the program, the ones who started in the program in 1st grade, we will have some of those students receive the seal of biliteracy next year when they graduate. And what the seal of biliteracy means is that you are competent at a high level in both English and Spanish, as based on some assessments that are provided, that the state assures and says your students will take these exams, depending on where they score, and we'll give them the seal if they reach that point. And then finally that kind of longer term look, the certificate of interpretation is another assessment that students take, for example, in legal interpretation, medical interpretation. They're very particular, and so you have to pass an exam for each one, and if you do, you can be employed in those fields as a certified interpreter, and money is pretty outstanding, particularly for a high school graduate.
When we get that certificate, it's actually a high wage hire. It's considered high wage hire in our area. So we have those kids that could do that, and the prison is always needing. I mean, there's a lot of areas that need that, especially because to get that certificate, again, it's not just is biliterate, but also can do it with the legal sense and those things. Because Dustin knows is that it's a big thing. They have to be able to use the exact words and then explain those things. And so it is possible that it could create a pathway for us, and so another CT kind of pathway.
So looking at the program structure now, if we look at the now category there, at K-5, as you probably know, our model is what's called a 50-50 model, which means students spend half their time in English and half their time in Spanish every day. There are 2 teachers per class, and they work as a team. So I might be the Spanish side teacher, I have 20 students, and Susie would be the English side teacher with 20 students also, and halfway through the day, we would switch classes, the students would move, and they'd have the other language for the rest of the day. That's just generally speaking how the program works at the K-5 level. This year, if you look at the 25-26 column, we began Spanish intervention, not just English level intervention, but Spanish intervention for the students who are native English speakers and need that additional assistance. So we began offering that at the elementary school this year, and we'll continue that next year. And then at the middle school, again, it's where the program really needs support. Currently, all students who are in the dual language program at the middle school get Spanish language, which is reading, writing, speaking, and listening in Spanish. But that is the only one required course that they have each year, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. There is the option to take math in Spanish, and another option to take academic support, which is really like homework help in Spanish too, which really doesn't involve a lot of interaction, either orally or written. It's just teacher in the room, and I can help you with your homework, but it would be in Spanish technically. And that was just simply an opportunity, a way of trying to increase the amount of Spanish time because it's desperately needed at the middle school. About half of our kids take a second class, so they have 2 classes in Spanish at the middle school. About half of them take that Spanish and math, but it's really the only required class, again, is Spanish language. And so we really need to increase the amount of Spanish at the middle school level. The way that we would do that, over on the right again in the 25-26 category there is to add an additional bilingual teacher. And we have hopefully put our money where our mouth is and are offering a $5,000 signing bonus to a teacher who is bilingual and in that area that we need and want at the middle school. And there's also the possibility of adding a virtual teacher, and I know Ryan's been working on that. I don't know if you have any.
So we're,
Yeah.
you saw we're going to meet, so with our NISA Virtual Academy, there's this school in Guatemala that they would actually be really interested in their teacher in their class pairing with one of our English only. So the teacher gives, one day in kind of English or Spanish only, right? So they're on Zoom, we see it on the big screen, right? So our kids are getting it there, and then they switch, and our teacher delivers it in English only to our kids, and then they get it. So it's kind of a international dual language kind of idea. We're just being really creative at how do we find some more resources, and so that's what we're working on. They're actually really, really motivated to do that. So,
Do we have any dialect issue?
it's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. So that's something we're going to explore. It's just the idea is out there. We
Great
found
idea.
a partner that wants to do it, and so now it's kind of time to iron out those details. But we have to be creative with giving them those experiences. So.
The current math option in Spanish, that's only certain levels of math, right?
Right.
Right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, only about half the kids are taking advantage of that at this point, of that second Spanish class. Then moving down to the 9 to 12, those dual kids at the high school take one required class, that's Spanish language. There are 4 levels of that from beginning, and none of them would be at that level. They'd be in intermediate or early advanced or advanced Spanish language. And then those who are planning to take the assessment that allows them to get the seal of biliteracy is a test prep class. And this year we had 15 of our sophomores and juniors take it's called the Avant assessment. It's a nationally recognized assessment. It's given to ambassadors, foreign dignitaries, people who work overseas. It's a very reputable assessment. 12 of the 15 students who took the exam in Spanish passed it at the level where they need to be. So those kids are set up to get the seal next year, assuming they have or will also pass the SBAC at all levels, at the proficient level or higher, showing again their proficiency in English also. So you can't just be proficient in one, but not be out there and get that seal. So that's the high school. What are we doing now? As Gina mentioned, we have this dual language committee that's been meeting for about 1.5 years now. Monthly meetings, more or less, with a few meetings or months missing. But we have a Four Rivers visit that we're planning for Four Rivers Community School that we're planning for later this month. As you know, they have a very robust dual language program all the way through 12th grade. We're updating our handbook, which hasn't been updated in several years, and then we're increasing parent communication, which is definitely needed, particularly through that entering sixth grade but presentation that we're going to be doing later this week for those parents and students who are coming up to the sixth grade level. And of course, would like to know what does it look like in the middle school? What will it look like at the high school? Looking at the 25-26 year, I mean, in addition to wanting to add that bilingual teacher at the middle school and the possibility of that virtual teacher, we want to provide additional PD for the dual teachers. It is a little easier said than done because they have all of the PD that the English only teachers do too, and then they would have to have specific dual language PD on top of that. So it's a little bit about creating some space and time for them to do that. We want to continue visits to other programs. And then we'd like to identify the district as a dual language district. And really what that is more of a verbal and written commitment to a program that goes K-12 as opposed to K-5. I mean, again, robust program K-5, kind of dipping our toes in the water, middle school and high school level. We really want to commit to it, have more opportunities, and say, yeah, we are going to offer this program all the way through because the research says that's what's needed.
So do you have a timeline on how you're going to bring dual language to the middle and the high school? I mean,
Well, right now for 25-26, anyway, for next year, our focus is on that just kind of one at a time. So if we can get that bilingual teacher in there and offer now 2 classes instead of 1 to every middle school student, that would be a huge difference, huge change. We'd be increasing their time with Spanish by 15% or something just by adding that one teacher. Be a big change. And then kind of year by year after that.
are there any other, I mean, I recognize that Four Rivers is a charter school. Are there any other public schools that have a dual language program that goes all the way through on this side of the state?
On this side of the state of Oregon, no. The short answer is no. I think the closest one that goes K-12 is in Idaho. That's in Haley, Blaine County School District. And I used to work there. And they've had a dual language program for maybe 18 years or so, and it goes K-12. And it's pretty, it would be a good program to visit. Yeah.
There were a couple other people that are in my program that also did evaluations of their dual language programs, but they were all pretty much K-5, that they were doing the same kind of 50-50 model. Obviously, it gets harder at middle school and high school, but I was interested in the same thing, like, let's see if there's other schools out there that go K-12, but you know, they were all pretty much what we're doing. And then offering, maybe they'd have like a social studies class at the middle school that was offered in Spanish, you know, those kinds of things, those same kinds of things we're thinking about too.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Any questions for Matt on where we're going and our goals of the program?
I'm excited about building the program.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, because I've been frustrated with the dual language program, and I've said before, if we can't do it right, we really should not try to do it.
Because how long have we been doing this?
11, this is the 11th year.
And I think that the parent or the handbook update is going to be key for that communication piece, because I don't know if you guys remember, you know, when we first started it, it was that commitment to middle school, high school, full dual language, where we were unable to meet that goal. So the handbook update actually has something that is obtainable for us, that goes with research base, and it is very clear, parents at least this. And so it's clearly communicated, because that's feedback that I heard. They told us when we did the program that it would be there in middle school, they build up slowly, and we just have not been able to meet that goal. And so be very clear with parents, this is what the minimum what we're going to do. So
You should remember also that on this board, I've been on for 6 years, and I am the longest serving member currently, so we don't have a lot of background on the history of the dual language program.
Or Perfect. Any other questions for Matt?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all. And if we can get that done for 25, 26, I think that is a huge step. That'd be great.
So we do have that posting out there for middle school, so if you know anybody, let us know. We also have a signing bonus for that person as well. So,
We like to keep throwing challenges at
Keep me in business here, right?
That's right. So, next we have Mrs. Burbank. It's her time to shine. I told you, we have a lot on the agenda today, a lot of good info for everybody. So Mrs. Burbank is actually going to be talking about the health curriculum adoption that we're going to bring up next week at the board meeting. So.
It's freezing in here.
You're up. It's all you.
Okay, should I just sit or?
You can do whatever you would like to do.
Okay, I think I'll just sit. So hi everybody, I'm back again. Once a year I get to do this. So this year it is, and I think I start with the same sentence almost every year, every 7 years, we are adopting a new curriculum for a particular subject, and this year's subject was health. So and we're excited to be giving the opportunity to impact students' knowledge about healthy and safe choices for the coming years. I have to say that I would say the health curriculum that we adopted 7 years ago is on its last leg, at least as far as elementary is concerned. So we're really excited to get something new and in place for elementary particularly. So we looked at the curriculums, and we're looking for an engaging way to teach the health standards and cover some of the health topics that we were most concerned with was wellness and health promotion, safety and first aid, substance use, misuse and abuse, food, nutrition, and physical activity, things such as this. We have to think about the broad spectrum of the health standards and all of the things that we cover when we teach health. We wanted input from a broader population than we've had in the past with it. So we reviewed the standards in the wellness committee, which had a membership that had staff, teachers, and community members, parents, and non-parent community members too. We also engaged the community through other multiple avenues, including the elementary principal, Shane Pratt. He had multiple bull talks this year and last year, so he was kind of leading up to it this year by having several bullpup talks about health and talking about the health standards and the health curriculum. He even went so far as to go to wrestling practices because he heard parents were gathering there, and so he got there and he was like, hey you guys, have you heard about our health adoption coming up? So that was pretty awesome. So he was really trying to reach out and get as much community involvement, and we were as well. Like, we tried to get as much community involvement as we could. We had one of our largest adoption committees this year. We had 10 teachers, staff, and principals on the adoption committee, and I showed you the breakdown there. We had quite a few elementary teachers, but we also had instructional assistants, which we haven't had before, and a principal on board with it. The staff, we had a couple meetings we had one meeting to kick it off, and then we had another meeting where they got to see the materials and got to take them back to their schools. I tried to get, Oregon didn't offer us a lot of different choices, but I asked the publishers to send me all of the different ones so that the teachers got to be able to see them, and I also went to the ESD and brought them back so the teachers could actually touch and feel every material that we were able to offer them as options. So then they took those back to their schools, and they taught a few lessons, they looked through the materials, they talked to their peers and other teachers of other grades and things like that, and made sure everybody was in agreement on what they were choosing. This happened to start a conversation because the elementary was like, oh my goodness, this is even more to teach. And so it started a conversation about teaching the health curriculum with fidelity. And so Shane is hiring a full-time PE and health specialist so that we will have a designated, like a special, like music, PE. There will also be a health time involved in that, so like 45 minutes a week of health class. So that will be pretty awesome, that they will have a designated person. Just making sure that they're sticking with it, and it doesn't just get something that gets shoved under the rug because teachers run out of time, like making sure that we're doing a good job of it. So now we'll take a look at what they chose, or what what their recommendations, what they would like to choose are. So the first one is for the elementary, and I want to just show you, and I'll leave them over here, but I kind of wanted to just show you because it looks different than a normal textbook, so I wanted to show you kind of what it looked like. This is what the student gets. It's a consumable, kind of, if you ever had a classroom a while ago, it looks like almost like a Scholastic reader or something like that. It's a consumable, and they are able to look through it. They can use, I happen to have taught this curriculum before, and so we used it, like we used all of our great reading strategies. We annotated reading, we wrote things about these things, so it was nice to have something you could mark all over and highlight and do stuff like that. So you can see it's very kid-friendly. This is 5th grade. So this is what it looks like. You'll notice some of these topics like what to do if you get burned, what to do if you get an insect sting, what to do if you have a sprain, how do you deal with dust in your eyes. Like these are all like really interesting. What happens when you have a broken bone? Drinking poison, what should you do if you drink some poison? They have like Dear Expert type little letters, which is kind of fun, caring for cuts, bloody noses, myths and what their reality is. Anyway, so, and then like some questions on the back and stuff like that. When the kid gets done with this, it gets sent home, so then the parents can look at it too. And what we have budgeted for and what we're hoping to be able to get is it's 7 years of this. So this comes every month, their little packet comes, and they get to go through it, and then they send it home so that we will make sure the parents get to see all of the same information, so they're kept in the loop about what we're teaching. So this is what one of the teachers said about the Great Body Shop. I really liked the Body Shop health curriculum for elementary students because it provides a comprehensive and engaging approach to teaching important health concepts in an age-appropriate manner. This curriculum focuses on key topics such as nutrition, physical activity, and emotional well-being, helping students develop a strong foundation for healthy habits. Interactive lessons and hands-on activities promote active participation, making learning fun for young learners while fostering a sense of responsibility for their health and well-being, which is a huge plus. Another bonus is that it is also available in Spanish, meeting the needs of our ELL students and families. The monthly booklet that goes home is a great way to also get families involved in creating healthy habits for their children. So I think that really summed it up. That was what one of our teachers said about it. The middle school, they had a couple different options, and they also went with Great Body Shop. So there will be, I love when we have some continuity between things, especially with something that is going home to parents, so they kind of know what to expect every time. So theirs, as you can see, looks a little bit different. When you get to middle school, it doesn't look quite so kiddie, you know. It looks a little more grown up, has real pictures. This one is about lifelong learning, becoming a lifelong learner. Do I belong? Emotions and learning. It's my brain, safety first, so that's about helmet use. I'm new here, how to guide yourself through peer pressure and trying to fit in while being an individual, and self-management quiz, so it's got some like quiz elements and stuff like that. It also has the ask an expert and word-wise, so it like has a little bit of like words, like vocabulary things that you might need to know. Some of these are like self-awareness, self-management. What does capable mean? So that is what the middle school one looks like. So I'll read you what the middle school teacher said. The middle school health and PE department would like to adopt the Great Body Shop as our new health curriculum. Of the Oregon Department of Education's approved options, this program stands out as the best fit for our students' needs. Additionally, since our elementary schools have also selected the Great Body Shop, adopting it at the middle school level will ensure a smoother and more cohesive transition for students as they progress through the curriculum. So, and there is, by the way, this, if you're looking through this and going, well, how do the teachers know what to teach? There is a little yellow booklet. This is where the teacher lessons are and everything. They also have an online component that the students can log into and that the teacher can get extra videos and worksheets and things like that. So they have that available
Does that little booklet also come in Spanish?
It does, yes, yep, yes. So all of, actually, yeah, I think the teacher, I'm not sure if the actual, like what the teacher teaches does. But I know all the consumables come in Spanish, so yeah. In fact, I think it does, because a lot of it is stuff that the teacher has to read out loud, so I feel like it does, yeah. It also comes in French, in case we, French speakers coming, so.
It's the next duel.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and then there's, I said, an online curriculum, and then also the teachers have access to a digital side of things as well. So they can also print off anything that they need for that. The health adoption for the high school is this one, Live Well. This is for freshmen, actually. Live Well, it's a comprehensive high school health curriculum, and you can see that it looks a little bit more traditional, but it has end of the chapter tests and things like that. But it still has a lot of text features and still interesting topics and things like that that will hopefully keep the kids engaged. Within this, they also had some an online component as well for the teacher to be able to show videos and things like that. They actually had a student portal, but I reviewed it really extensively and it just didn't seem like it was worth it. And I talked it over with the teacher and she reviewed it too, and we decided not to get it. It was, what the person kept saying is, but you can get all of this with the free online thing that the teacher, it was all, and then it was an ebook, and I didn't want kids sitting on their Chromebooks reading the book. I wanted them to have a textbook, so so we opted for not getting the ebook, and the same thing we could get just from buying the textbook. So this is what the instructor said. They said, from an instructor's standpoint, the transition to this curriculum from the old book will be seamless. Therefore, this will make labs, lectures, and assignments more beneficial for students. They felt like this really closely aligned with what they had already had and were pretty happy with. So then we have Health for Juniors, which is a different book. This is actually a college level lab book, and this is what he has been using. This is Tom DeLong. He has been using, I think it's like the 14th edition, and he had it, it was like loose leaf, and he had it in binders, and the students were learning out of binders for like the last several years. So he's so excited to have a bound book. I can't tell you. And we were excited to be able to get the bound book for him, and the updated 16th edition. We are buying him two, just because the quality of this book, it's actually a lab book, so the paper is really, really thin. The pages are super thin because I think it's supposed to be a consumable. But he wanted to use it over and over again, so I said, hey Tom, instead of 30, let's get 60, so that in 3.5 years, you can change over to your new books when these first ones get ruined, because I feel like they will. So, but he was really happy because it still has the labs, and he said, I just print up the labs and have them do it and fill it out. But this way we have the information in a book. So he said the high school health teachers are excited about the updated health curriculum. This curriculum has a hands-on approach where students are engaged in health activities that are current with the new Oregon Health Teaching Standards for grades 9 through 12. Just to sum it all up, we hope that you're as excited about this new curriculum as we are. It should be engaging and informative for all. So, do you have any questions?
So does this include the drug program that we talked about doing? Is that what they would cover this?
It is covered in there, but the drug program we have will be on top of. So just it goes a little more in depth.
And there's a lot of overlapping things with health right now. So the ESD, they're trying to make like a spreadsheet that kind of says this is where this is covered, this is where this is covered, because with health there are several things like that that are kind of overlapping with our social emotional learning and things like that. So.
Do they also cover like in freshman year, like STDs and stuff like that?
Sure.
I don't know the standards off the top of my
Well, I
head.
just know that my daughter watched a video when she was a freshman, and she said, came home and said, Mom, I've never had sex.
Good deal.
Whatever. Mr. Hasselbaum.
Yeah.
So I said, show it every week.
But that does bring up a good question.
I mean,
It-
there are things that
yes.
kids need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and health is such a huge area. Is there anything controversial we need to know about in these programs?
So one thing that we did did do is we chose 3 programs where none of the student-facing materials have the more controversial topics in them. So the Great Body Shop especially, like everything that the kids are actually looking at, their books, they can't like flip to the back of the book where the juicy stuff is. Like none of it is in the student-facing materials. It is all in the hands of the teacher to use and deem culturally appropriate for our area. So.
But some of those things need to be touched on.
Sure.
It-
Controversial doesn't mean it shouldn't be
Right.
discussed, but
Yes.
we need to know what calls we're going to
Well, and I
get.
think it's the right time and place.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
Well, even like in 5th grade when we did the girl
Yeah.
block, you know, we had some parents opt out. I don't want my daughter watching that. Well, you know, I mean.
And I think having that health PE teacher in elementary is gonna help us with.
So that's on
consistency
top of
messaging.
the other PE
Yes,
teachers?
it is an add-on.
Kind
So
of like
it-
we had Dixie.
Yeah, exactly, that's exactly what kind of the model we're going, but what we do is we're able to control, or be able to look at those things and how they're delivered and make sure it's delivered in a consistent manner through our elementary. And we can review those products and say, this is really good, so. But yeah, so that's one of the things you'll see in Crystal's budget coming up. We have that add-in. The 2 big add-ins obviously are support for that dual language, that's something we need to do, and with adding a new specialist with the health adoption as well, so you'll see those things.
I do have a question, Ryan. We've talked about the dual language and the health curriculum. And we've mentioned communication, and we talked about communication from elementary school to middle school. Some parents might want to know about this also, especially going from middle school to high school. So I'm just asking, do we have a sort of program or whatever you want to call it to help parents, not necessarily kids, but parents transition from elementary to middle school and from middle school to high school?
I think we do a better job in elementary, I'll say that. I think that when you get into middle school and especially high school, right, it's kind of like, okay, well, just kind of go. But we do need to do a better job of communicating this stuff, and especially with health curriculum and adoption and the standards, there's been a lot of kind of confusion of what's going to be taught and not, and giving them an opportunity like Shane has with the Bullpup Talks, with going to wrestling practices, those things like, hey, we want you to look at this. Here's, we have those like, here, please look at this. And we just need to do a better job of engaging more.
Put that down on your list of goals, because that,
Yeah, and I think
that
you'll
is-
see that's part of what you'll see in our strategic plan, is that it's not just dual language and health curriculum. We saw that from feedback of everybody in every area, and so that's something we're working on, is like, how do we engage in a different way, so, yep.
do we have other questions for Kathleen?
How is the pricing compared to the last program? I mean, you've got pricing in here, but I have no idea comparison.
So obviously, if it's a core, right, that's a $1 million adoption. With this one, because it's so limited medium, like, like high school, middle school, you usually 1 class set or 2. It's way cheaper, 10% of what it is. But and then the last 7 years, we didn't do a full adoption either, so it was, we gave them like 20 grand, right, and they were able to do it. It's obviously more expensive than that, but,
Well, like this 36,406, is that per year?
No, that is for all 7 years.
That's also, okay.
Yeah, I know. I felt like that was, Shane was like, oh, Kathleen, it's going to be expensive. And I was like, I think that's worth it. Like, especially 7 years of consuming pools. I felt like they
Yeah,
were
that
pretty
seems
reasonable.
reasonable.
the
Yeah.
consistency of, we wanted to get out there to parents and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say with the walking program, this aligns like really well
Mhm.
with like more education and then,
Yeah, yeah.
Very thoughtful, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I will leave all of those here, and I will pick them up tomorrow. Or if you want to, we're really actually pretty much done with all of these samples. So if you want to even take it home and look at it and read it in your spare time, you could.
So that will, on Monday during the board meeting, we're going to propose it. That's what we adopt, and so you'll see that on the agenda for Monday. So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if
Is
you have-
everybody doing okay? You guys need anything? we're rocking through. There's a lot today, I told you.
Yes.
A lot of information, but it's just, I mean, this is that time of year when all of those things we've been planning all year and saying, hey, here's the work we're doing, really is coming to a head. And so that's why there is a lot. So. We are going to transition into, and this is kind of one of my favorite thing, is our strategic plan. It was a year ago where we started talking about a strategic plan for the district and really creating a good 5 and 10 year goal for the board, for the community, for our teachers. And so today you're going to see the first draft of that plan. I'm excited. I can't even stand still. No, I want to make this very, very, very clear. This is a first draft. This is, you guys are the first people seeing it, obviously online. But we want your feedback before we come and start finalizing that into another draft or a final draft in May. And so that's what we're going to be presenting today. I'm just going to do a quick overview about the journey of how we got here and kind of the hours and things it took for us to get there. So we had, as we know, we had the steering committee. The steering committee was a group of individuals that had classified, certified, admin. It was really just, I mean, we wanted to represent every group here in the school district to review these things, and from elementary all the way up to high school. And so there's 12 of us, I think, on that committee. And so what we did, we met multiple times after school and really started hammering out some of this stuff. There was a lot to go through to get to this point. And so Sergio, our consultant with Stuart, he was there some virtual last Friday. Actually, Mrs. Warnock was here when he was here. We had a half day last week as well, and he was actually here in person. But so with Sergio's kind of help navigating through all of this. So as you can see at the meetings we analyzed and synthesized data, and that data is from both kind of the town hall meetings, the surveys that we put out to staff, teachers, and parents. He also came and did focus groups. We looked at student data. So really all of those things we got together as a group and went through it like fine-tooth combed and had a lot of really great conversations. And you know, we had to get to a point as a group how to talk and work with each other. And you know, it's like, well, who said that? What does that mean by that? Like, I mean, it was actually really, really good stuff. We were able to discuss and debate about those priorities. We looked at all of those things, and I'll go a little more in detail when we look at it. Is, you know, kind of words, and you know, is that really a priority, or is that, you know, are we seeing really themes through everything? And like Mrs. Mornaka said, a theme that we're seeing tonight is like communication, right? Dual language. That was another theme that we saw, and you'll see that in here. And so, so we were able to do all those things, identify areas of strategic focus, and set board priorities. Recommended, this is our best effort of a first draft to you guys. And it's rough, and we want it to be rough because we want you to know that this is a first draft. It is. We want to get it to you guys, get your feedback. We want to get it to the community and get their feedback, and then come up with a final plan. So, no, first draft. Of course. So here's the kind of the components of the strategic plan that you see that we looked at. We're aligning kind of our mission and vision, the goals and the measures, and the core values. And that's something that we did a lot of work with, but like what is important to NISA and what are those core values? And really coming up with a long-term 5-year goal with that. I'm going through this kind of fast for you guys, but just to know, there's a lot of work and we're really mindful going through it. It wasn't just 12 people's opinions. This is really like the whole community's opinions on it and we went through it. So here are the parts of that strategic plan. Obviously our mission and vision, what we value, our pillars of priorities, goals, and strategies. It was kind of funny when we spent an hour about the word pillar. I mean, this is how fine-tooth we are, like pillar. Well, pillar is like this, and if you start naming the pillars, then are we saying one's more important than the other? So there's no pillars.
We spent forever prioritizing the pillars, and then said, why do we prioritize them? Yeah.
Yeah. So just, I mean, like I said, I wanted to use that example to tell you guys just how much mindfulness went into this process, and then so you'll see it today. So what we came up with is what NISA values, and this is the value of our community and everything, and which will be the intro to our theme next year is NISA Strong. The things that we value here at NISA are supporting, trust, respect, openness, nurturing, and grit. And so that's where the word strong comes from. And we actually had to kind of play to get there, talking about perseverance and those things and those words out there. So when we say what Nissa Strong is, that's what our community is. That's what makes Nissa strong, are those things. And so we're kind of proud of that one. It took us a while to get there, but so Nissa strong. And that's what it means when we say they're strong, is this is a place that supports. There's a lot of trust in our system, and that was something that's a priority of our community, putting trust back in there. Respect, we're open. We nurture our learners, both students and employees, and we show a lot of grit. So just so you know, that's where it is. And you'll get a copy of this here in a second, but I want you guys to know that these are those words, these are the words we came up with that based on all of the feedback. Right? Collaboration is important to us, encouraging, helpful, reliable, advocacy. And so that's where those words came out of that. That way. So now I'm actually giving you guys the first look at the 4 areas, the 4 focus areas, or goals. And I'll go through them and explain them to you. So there were, out of this, we came up with 4 specific areas that was a priority of both the board, our staff, and the community. And so the first one is in no order, just to give you a heads up, it just happens to be the first one on the page. Academic excellence and student success. The next one is employee investment. The one after that, community engagement and resources, and the last one, fiscal and innovation. So those are the 4 areas out of all the things we said, what do we do well, what do we need help with, is that we're identified for that. So we'll go through the first goal on there, green. So what I'll do is I'll go olive green, and then we'll go olive, orange, then blue and gray. So the goal is improve academic performance, increase graduation rates, student attendance, and enhance student support and safety. And so that's kind of the overarching goal. If we see, here are those strategies. Set higher academic expectations for all students. Implement data-driven collaboration to track student progress. Provide targeted support for struggling students, and improve student attendance. And then the next one is celebrate student achievement, maintain a positive student climate and culture. And you'll see part of it is a big feedback that we got from parents and students both is we don't celebrate enough of the student achievements, academic achievements. So you'll see that is directly, that's why it's one of our goals. That was pretty clear as one of our lowest areas that we rated on, is we don't do enough celebration, especially when we look at middle school and high school.
So what are you thinking of celebrating?
So that's part of it. Like elementary, we do award ceremonies. We really pick that out, right? What is a high school? You know, they do the AB thing. They're starting to do the bingo more. They'll have an AB lunch in middle school coming up this week. Finding different opportunities to celebrate, not only with school, with the students here, but with parents. And so we're talking about, like, hey, even send a note home. Hey, kid did really well on this test, or something of that nature. So finding opportunities for us to celebrate academic success with our higher students. So.
But I always worry about those kids that are struggling, like the special ed kids. Like Mr. Grotten used to take them to the YMCA. Every kid in my class wanted but one little special ed girl. She didn't get to go. And she would never pass the test because she was in sped. And sometimes those kids are doing the best they can and they never get celebrated.
So, and that's part of it, celebrating student achievements. It doesn't mean in A.
Academic achievements.
Yeah, an achievement for
Improvement. It should be just for improvement.
yeah. Wow, they really worked hard. Like they won a whole grade level, right? Even though they're 3 grade levels. So it's finding opportunities to do that.
That's my concern.
I'm really good at finding those. Well, you did 2% better than the last time I met you.
And so part of it is, and I put that in my weekly message, is that like Gina and I went down there and brought lunch to our 3rd grade teachers because they showed amazing growth in their last math fluency test, right? So it's not only just celebrating the students there, but helping celebrate the parents, but also celebrating the teachers. We went down during the break time, brought them pizza and said, hey, you guys are working so hard, we just want to say thank you. I mean, just finding those ways. So anyway, so there's a lot in there, of course. Just missed it by 2 seconds. So you'll see that it says maintain a positive student climate and culture. Part of when you see the survey data out there, one of our lowest areas too was, and it wasn't that bad. It was actually a 3.3 something, which isn't like, oh no, like right, students feeling safe and welcome here at school, and saying that's a low area, we need to put it as one of our goals. So, we'll see that. So going back, all the way back to employee investment, when we used the word investment, we were going back and forth, it was like employee engagement, so employee investment was a big part of it, and that's a goal for, as I said, with the board as well, and our community is increase staff longevity, improve staffing practices, and enhance staff quality. The strategy to attract qualified applicants, and that's part of when we say, hey, we need a dual language teacher in middle school. What are we going to do to attract them? Not only do we have a very competitive, I mean, one of the highest in the county's salary, but maybe there's a bonus out there we can do. Just things like that. How do we get out there and attract more people with it? I mean, more than just salary and benefits on top of it. Provide additional social and emotional learning training, and that goes to, I was very specific by multiple teachers. We want more support in this. Improve communication and transparency between buildings and with the community. And you'll see where it says 3.16 right there, or 3.61. That's the on the survey where we landed out. We wanted to be within a 4 to 5, somewhere around there is doing really, really well. That was one of our low areas at 3.61. And so that's why you'll see that number on there. We took most of them off, but that one's still left on there. So just for you to know, that's where that comes from. And you'll see celebrate staff achievements district-wide, retain and maintain longevity of staff, low turnover and growing leadership, and then high attendance for staff. Oh, sorry, don't look at that yet. And so that's one way we're going to measure this one. And again, this is the first draft, right? We're going to say, what is our turnover? And you'll see our job openings this year. We've actually had less than we've had in a really, really long time. Each year, people are happy when I say it. So that's our job, is to look at that data, And so anyway, so you'll see that the next one, the blue, is community engagement and resources, strengthen community involvement, improve communication, and enhance resource accessibility. Increase community involvement in students' education school events, and that's a 3.32. As you can see, it's a pretty low one on there. So the lowest ones were that one, the students feeling like wanting to come, safety and belonging, and then the transparency between buildings. The next one, develop an innovative process for all parents/caregivers to be engaged. The one after that, maintain social media as a positive form of communication. And May was there when we were sharing this at the Friday PD, and if you didn't know, Mrs. Robbins was actually there to help. She went to the Friday PD and was in our engaging ELL parents, and it was amazing. Like, the only board members probably at the whole PD of everybody in the county, and so my hats off to you, Mrs. Robbins. So I want to tell you, but so that's something that we were talking about, and then last Friday we actually just reached our first 1,000 followers for Facebook, which is pretty awesome. And I mean, and we're climbing, right? And if we can find different avenues to engage our parents, like that's one small avenue, right? But that's being creative. If people are there and we're driving them there, then we're giving them content too. So anyway, Megan told me don't go off topic. Sorry. And then so the next one is improve representation from diverse populations. Finding opportunities to get some, maybe there's committees, maybe a PTO reaches out. The next one, foster cooperation and trust among all community. Increase representation for migrant Spanish-speaking populations to better reflect the school population. Awesome. The last one is fiscal and innovation. Focus on fiscal stewardship. Enhance extracurricular activities and participation. That goes, we also talked about what the board goal was, increasing CTE numbers, finding different CTE options as well, and that's kind of, we talked about that. Focus on the quality of programs rather than just the quantity, and saying we need to evaluate those things. Being innovative, right, is do we need to take some things that may not, maybe antiquated, and our kids no longer, we don't offer a home ec class, even though it would be great, right, but our kids are saying, foods class is really good. But, so what we just have to, part of it is saying, let's look at the quality of our programs, what our kids want out of science, and so that's where that comes in. Facility planning, ensure fiscal security, apply equity lens to support programs and people. and support innovation through fiscal stewardship, and support programs and departments with fiscal stewardship. So there it is. That is our first draft. As you can see, there is your previous board goals woven through all of those. And so there are multiple avenues that we looked at when creating these 4 areas and what we need to focus on. So, questions or comments? And there's a lot to take in, so there's no rush right now.
You did say first draft.
I do, I really do, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was looking at the academic excellence and student success.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, instead of setting higher academic expectations, what if we were to talk about just keeping the high expectations but getting more buy-in?
So it's funny that you put it, because we went back and forth on that one, right? Saying maybe it's increase the rigor, like, you know, and so, but I like that saying, you know, we need to and that's what we said, how do we maintain high expectations but get more buy-in to those expectations? And so, I will bring that back to the group, but you see where we were going with it?
Yeah,
I think we were all in the
because
same place.
Like the special ed teacher in me is going higher expectations when some of these kids don't even feel like they can meet them in the first place. And then we set the bar even higher and then they feel like they can't meet it.
So say that again, just I want to make sure I get it.
So if we have students that already feel like they can't meet the academic expectations, and setting the bar higher is going to make them feel even less successful. And we want to get that buy-in piece and then make them feel like they're getting supported, but still having that high academic standard, but helping push them as opposed to making them feel defeated before they start.
And there's an area on here when we reviewed student data, is saying that, you know, we're traditionally around that 30 to 34%. We need to have higher expectations for ourselves. That's not good enough. And so that was part of looking at that. How do we set those academic markers that we're improving now to say,
But we're trying that into the
yeah.
SEL training, you know, just even like things like, you know, I do affirmations every day with my students, and just for some of my kids, when I do the feedback at the end of the semester, they say, you're the only teacher that ever like tells us we can do it, you know?
and isn't that weird? It's like, kids remember that and just saying, I think, wasn't that part of our group too? Is that whole thing, like you're the first person, somebody said that? College is something, an option for you, can do it. So anyway, thank you.
And then going to the next part about like collaboration, I was wondering how often like middle school and high school collaborate with like their pathways, same with elementary and middle school, because I know a lot of times we get so focused on what our grade level expectations are, standards, that we're like, you know, we're finding in our school is our elementary or middle school teachers are focusing so heavily on 5-paragraph essays, and our high school teachers are like, yeah, we're not even doing that because of AI. So why are we focusing so heavily in middle school when that's not where our focus is in high school?
And that's something, I mean, we have a benefit, right? So close, they have all their PD together, but I don't think we have enough PLC time where we're seeing our high school and middle school work enough in that, right? Our specials do, but I think that's part of what we need to continue. So what would you say we could do to improve that goal, right, that goal in there?
I think just more of like K-12 standard focus, like making sure that we're covering everything and not duplicating unnecessarily.
It's more like a K-12 or map, I mean.
Yeah, kind of like mapping that out, yeah.
Okay.
Because that even ties into what I was gonna say in the innovation piece too, is like, you know, when we talk about like the college and career pathways, we're supposed to start that in middle school and making sure that, you know, like career cluster shouldn't be something they're learning as a junior or senior in high school.
We hope not,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I'm
And
finding
actually,
it,
it's
very
required by the state
true.
to be a middle school, and so, yes, that's good. Like it. Anything else on that?
And then I'm just kind of curious how you said improve student attendance, and then my question was kind of how?
Yeah. So I think, right, because right now we're 94%, and we've done a lot of work to get to 94. Like things are going really, really well, but I think it's we're starting that process of how are we supporting parents through it? How are we communicating our expectation? Because it has been really, attendance before has been,
And I just wonder too, because one of the things that I really get with our families is the attendance policy does not matter if you're online or in person. So if you're struggling in the in-person getting physically to school, or going online isn't gonna fix your problem. Like there's you gotta figure out what the underlying problem is. Because all that's gonna happen is you're gonna be even more truant online.
well, and that's where we started our district level attendance meetings, and we had like Lifeways is here, we have, I mean, how many of us are, so we have district counselor, we have the SRO, we have, I mean, as many resources up here, because it is, right, the building started working with them. Now, how can we be creative outside of find some resources at that point? Because it's more than just get here, what's, I mean, where's the gap at? So, but yeah, sorry. Bird walking. Megan's throwing at me, stay on point. Go ahead.
No, a few years ago, didn't the school do something for the kids if they had perfect attendance?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but that would be something that we need to celebrate as well. Yeah, I know they have some award, they'll have like a,
That was one award that one of my children got, that was the only award that they got.
but I think that's something that is important as well, is it's not only the hammer, right? There's the other side of it is,
But you need to recognize the parents too, because they're the ones that wake up the kids, they're the ones that drive the kids here, they're the ones that are on top of it, and they're like, had to go to school, this and that, we get up early.
and it's
But
that
if the
everyday
parents
fight.
are hearing from their kid, and not all parents are this way, but if parents are hearing from the kid, I want to be at school, it pushes the parents a bit.
Mhm. Right?
I never heard from my kids.
And that's part of this one, maintain a positive student climate culture. We said, again, you'll see that word maintain is really mindful of putting that in there as we need to actually get better at that. And so that's part of it, right? If this is a great place for kids and they want to be here, attendance goes
And
up.
piggyback on that though, because my kids tell me stuff all the time that I'm like, I don't think that's true, but, but they'll say, well, on this day, nobody else is going, or this isn't happening, or it's a waste of time, and just getting, like, I mean, that's part of like that grit and resilience piece is, I do a lot of those life skills with my kids where I'm like, you're gonna have a job someday where they're gonna make you do something that you're just gonna hate, and you have two choices. You can do it and just do it, or you can not do it and probably get called into your boss's office and maybe get fired. And I think that's one of the things that some of our students and our parents need to understand is, it doesn't matter if you're gonna sit in your classroom and you're not gonna learn anything, you probably are gonna learn something. Or maybe if everybody's there, your teacher will feel less defeated. I just feel like sometimes the kids are kind of driving the car.
Those are most of my parent meetings I see. So I'll be honest with you. And as you can see, the board has already taken some proactive measures of helping attendance. By the way, you guys looked at the calendar and said, hey, this isn't effective. And so you guys have already been doing some things to not only help the positive culture, but also improve attendance for staff and students. So.
And I have some things to celebrate, things that we can recognize, but I don't know that that's necessarily.
The finer details we're going to start getting into when we get there.
We don't need
And
to
so,
get into
yeah,
that right this
yeah.
second, and then the only other one I had was in the fiscal and innovation. Focus on the quality of programs rather than just on the quantity. I think we could, I know Dustin, you have a middle schooler. Jasmine, you have a middle schooler. You don't have a middle schooler. But having some creative ideas of ways to expose our kids to options. I know one of the frustrations I had in the past with middle school electives is sign up for your elective, and partway through first quarter they go, I really hate this class, and you're in that elective. There's got to be some ways that we can get the kids exposed to different things with still fit within the schedule, and I think that there's I don't have the answer, but I think maybe if everybody got together, we might get some creative ideas.
I agree with you, and that's part about making it a role like that.
Mhm.
It puts it out there saying, we're gonna work on this. So,
And then the only other thing was that career college pathway, starting mapping out when everything's gonna be covered.
right there. Okay, go ahead. Anybody else?
You also need to bring parents in on that when everything is going to be covered. Because if parents know, hopefully they will push their kids and ask questions.
Because like I know Beaverton School District, you can go on and you can see in 6th grade, they're gonna cover these skills, 7th grade, 8th grade, all the way through. So I know like, oh, if a kid came from this district, they didn't hit that skill, so we need to make sure that it's getting covered.
I thought it was a great idea, or a great kind of point when they were saying, why is my middle school so focused on this, at high school we don't even care, right? I mean, but it's that communication we need to do as well. And next year it looks like writing is gonna be really focused and intensive, and so the elementary, so right now they have a bunch of subs out there because they're meeting as a group and creating what does writing instruction look like for us, and how are we going to measure those things. And that's K through 5, and so tomorrow they're gonna meet with some more and get a really good plan out, but then we've gotta get that to middle school and high school. So, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Gosh.
And this is kind of a thought too, is with the community engagement and resources, is there any way, Crystal, that we could have a part of a budget that maybe even has like a safety net, like for families that have, you know, like a hardship type? Is there something in there already, or?
We have budgeted funding for McKinney-Vento families, that's definitely something we budget for. But if they don't fall under that,
Because I know, like, we used to have a scholarship that, I don't know where it came from, that it was like, you know, maybe you have a family, they don't qualify for McKinney-Vento, but, you know, they're one step away from losing their housing, and so you have like a one-time, you know, fund. And that's saved a lot of families that just were one step away from losing everything.
yeah, in our current budget, we do not.
Is that something that, I don't know, our board or, you know, is that something, because the thing is, we know which families truly need it, which ones don't.
Would you say there's, I would say that there's community resources already filling that need. Like, right, I just learned that OHP is doing 6-month of rent assistance to families that qualify for OHP.
But there are those families that fall into some of those cracks that don't qualify, is what I was thinking of.
And I would say not only some of those cracks, that sometimes you can act a little faster, right, than, you know, like, but that's something I'd be more happy to entertain looking into. We can call the board again. But, you know, I mean, just that community outreach and support, there are some times that we do need to go in there quickly and find a stop or a Band-Aid. Because I do think that Maribel's right, like, I mean, she knows the community resources more than anybody. We can be the resource, we can help kind of get people there and do that. I think it's super important with the right people, but again, like I said, there's gaps and there's like, people get it. So. Any other feedback right now? And again, I take this in, like think about some things, like, well, I was thinking of this and where that might fit into this as well. What do you think? We had that today. This is strong, and actually, you know, it's funny on this one, and I did put a competition between Miguel and Bobby today, but that's kind of a mix between, you know, kind of the traditional bulldog that you'll see. We actually took pictures of the ones in the gym, right? Mixed it with kind of our newer look on there, so it's just kind of this mix between traditional and you know, kind of honor the history as we kind of go forward in the future. And that, so there's, believe it or not, that picture, there's a lot of story behind why that picture. That actually will be the front of your budget message as well, and it will be going into next year. That's going to be a theme, and this is what it's going to kind of look like. So, yeah. Any questions about that?
I don't want to color this all the way to the east.
I noticed that right now, the colors are up there.
What is that?
We're almost there. How about that? Yeah, honestly, I just noticed that now. That's,
Yeah.
so here's
like-
a good lesson when you're AI generating things is it's the little things that sometimes it doesn't always get right, like the hands, the mouth, and the eyes are usually big, but that's something we will go in and we'll fix on top of that. So,
But somebody's.
yeah. That's one of those little AI tricks. Actually, I learned there's a thing called Zero ChatGPT, if you guys heard of it. And so what you do is, and this is for educators, not teachers don't know, Megan knows about it.
Yeah.
If you put any sort of writing into Zero ChatGPT, it actually, because it knows the algorithm of the way the AI writes things, it'll tell you if it's AI generated. So any teacher can put in a writing assignment by a kid, put it into Zero ChatGPT, and be able to, with pretty confidence, to saying it matches this algorithm, it is AI generated. So there's little teaching tricks for
And
you
there's
guys.
things like, you know, words that they don't know,
Yeah.
or all of a sudden their spelling is really good.
Grammar's on. Well, I mean, you could even sit there and say, hey, you know, like, please, like, change this, like, I have really bad grammar or really bad spelling, you know, and like, make it sound like a third grader. Anyway, so, thank you. We're moving on.
I would like to say that I like that you used grit for the G instead of reusing the word resilience, because grit sounds more like it comes from NISA.
Yep.
Yes, we like that too.
And there's something about grit, which is kind of what in my mind, like, hard work being kind of like, you know, tilled in the soil. Or when I think of those things, that I think embody NISA. And so that's why all of those things we're pretty mindful of that. So, you know, thank you for the feedback on that. So, as you see, there's a lot of thought and heart into all of these things. So, okay, moving on. Thank you.
She's gonna sit right here, she's like.
Oh yeah, she is.
Next.
We're going. I'm moving. I'm going. So this one is just an overview for our meeting on Monday. I'm sorry. So we are updating our IP, which is integrated program, which used to be called the IG, which is integrated guidance, which used to be SIA HSS, right? So they keep transitioning the name. It is kind of the same thing on it, because when it was SIA, Student Investment Account, and they added in HSS, which the High School Student Success Act did. They changed that to IG, or Integrated Programs. Well, now they've added in early literacy part of that program, and now it's IP. And get your mind in the middle school letter, but anyway, so what I want to do is review just kind of the strategies and outcomes and the budget for you guys, because on Monday I'll have a presentation that goes a little more on the outside, but I wanted you guys to see what those were, where we're spending this money on, and then so you'll have reference on Monday during our board meeting when I have the presentation. So as you can see right here on page 1, I know it says page 2 or 3 because I copied and pasted some things you didn't need, these are the outcomes and strategies we have with the SIA High School Success, HSS. And you'll see, cultivate a safe and educational environment. The next blue one, NISA School District students will be provided access to well-rounded education. The next one, 90% of 9th grade students. The next one, NISA School District will continue to offer 5 statewide approved CTE programs. As you can see, that's more the High School Success Act, and 90% of our NSD seniors prepared for college, having completed FAFSA college application. Again, that's where you'll see all of those strategies and outcomes. The only strategy and outcome you don't see addressed here are the early lit ones, and we'll go over that here in a minute, but those are the ones, so this has all of those programs in there. So here is our total budget allocation. You'll see that 23-24, that's what we had for HSS and then SIA. This year, you'll see that what we had, so we had a reduction in high school success money, but they really increased our SIA. And so you'll see that. And then our budget for, so this first section right here, this is everything we spend on our the SIA. And you'll see things like a nurse, that guidance counselor, STEM, SPED director. You also have a student information system person in there as well. So here's a breakdown of all those people. we won't go too far into that. The next page, it's actually, it shows you who they are. We are also in high school, or the SIA next year, transitioning one of our positions to be more of a student-wide safety person, and so we're transitioning a role in there, but it'll have the same, it'll come out of the same kind of goal and strategy, but their job will actually encompass more. And so you'll see that in there as well. If you can see that purple page is where I'm looking at next. Here's our allocation for next year. Our High School Success Act came up a little bit. Our SIA went down a little bit, and then if you remember, the SIA that's the student investment account, comes from that corporate tax. So it is based on tax percentages and how much money comes in. So every year it's going to fluctuate based on taxes. So this next one this is actually everything that is in the High School Success Act. You'll see high school vice principal, right now it's 0.5 FTE. Because we have less money and salaries have increased so much, we've actually had to take that that percentage from 0.5 to like 0.25 or something. That if you remember, yeah, 0.25 to maintain the current service level of what we're doing with High School Success Act. With the CT business, the college and career stuff, so you'll see that in here. Total allocated budget on the purple. And then I think, so on this it says 11 of 5 here, that's kind of the next page I want to just focus in on. Those last 3 items are the dual language Spanish early literacy. So this is our early lit. So our investment for early literacy is actually dual language Spanish early literacy. And so we have 2 5.0s right now. And one of those people are retiring for like the 20th time. She's amazing. She said, you know, so you'll see we do have a posting for a 0.5 early literacy coach. And so anyway, so that's what we'll be continuing that service next year as well for early literacy. You'll see the rest of it is just kind of the money on there. And that is kind of a nutshell of the breakdown of SIA, High School Success Act, early literacy, where that money is going, and where we came up with why are we putting money towards the nurse? Why are we doing it? So that's all there for reference for you guys next week. Any questions on that? There's a lot in there. I know.
Dick, can you start that all over?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Slow down, please.
Yeah.
Make it like.
I know. Well, and that's part of it. And I realized there were a lot of like SIA, HSS, and those things. I do apologize on that. And I need to do a better job, especially when we're communicating this board to say, hey, this is what it means, SIA, student investment account. So at any time, please let me know. Just say, hey, for the viewers at home, please, can you tell us what high school HSS is? So things like that. I would remind me of those things. So thank you. Okay. The next one, Dustin's favorite. That's where he was ready for. Policies. So we pulled these out last board meeting because we had some more questions on it. First one being that that local wellness program, and so we just wanted an opportunity if you guys had any questions.
Okay, I do have one thing. In that local wellness program, they talk about nutrition a lot.
Yep.
Okay. Nowhere in there did I see addressed a spot where if you know your child has a food allergy, it doesn't say in there that you should tell the school nurse or tell, you know, how to go through making sure that your child is taken care of. So that was the one thing I noticed. And I noticed in the physical part, it does have a note about, you know, work to their physical, if they have a physical disability. But again, a food allergy is not mentioned.
Let's see, where are we at?
Food allergies are often covered with the health plan.
Yeah.
But since you're discussing nutrition, and you do talk in this plan about if, you know, some treats come in for a birthday party or something,
Yeah.
you know, you need to, the teacher needs to be aware, or at least whatever, but it's just a little cross-referencing I thought might be wise.
to get an answer for you where that is addressed in policy, and maybe we just do a reference to food allergies, please reference those things. And that might be a really easy spot for it right there, so, thank you. I remember our whole wellness committee got together and looked at this, PE teachers, nurse, food service, community members as well, went through all of these pieces to give feedback on it, so. Anything else you guys feel? Perfect, we'll move on to, and this one was the big one, that GBN, JBA sexual harassment. There are 3 areas. It was actually fun. I was like, well, remember Mr. Martinson said these 3 areas? And I'm like, yes, we'll look at it. And then I would go to Megan, like, what were those 3 areas again? And she actually spent time going back and doing, so I gotta tell you, I appreciate Ms. Glenn for doing that to make sure we answer that. But so she has highlighted the 3 areas that Mr. Martinson pointed out during the board. There might be more in there, but the first one being right there on at page 2, that number 2, right? Is that correct? That was your first question on there, if you remember. Part of that is it's in the Oregon definition, and that's why it's in there. That's how it's defined in there. And I think Megan and I were talking about that today. Is just as a reference to more parents, but you're absolutely right. We would ask those questions in like an interview, like, right, like, is this interfering with your school? And it has to meet those measures. So really my thought in there is like, one, for parents reviewing this policy, it helps them kind of understand, okay, it has to interfere, like, does it interfere with your schooling? So anyway, so that's why we looked at it. It is part of the Oregon law, it's defined in there as such, and so that is actually directly from that. Okay. So, are you comfortable with it on there?
On just the interferes part?
Well, the first, it was a whole number 2 that you had questions on, correct? It was 2A, B, and C. Like, why do we need to put that in there if it's already? I mean, of course it does. And so that was one of the first questions you had. Was, do we even need it? So.
Well, the bigger issue is unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature that is physical, verbal, or nonverbal. It doesn't have to interfere with the student's education for it to be sexual harassment. But when you put the "and," it shoehorns that into it. And even if the Oregon law says this is what's required, it doesn't mean we can't make a more restrictive policy than what Oregon law has. But I really don't like it when it says it has to also do this.
Yeah. Well, and so you're reading it that the "and" means also, it's like also like it has to not only be unwelcome conduct, but it also has to interfere with their schooling. It also has to,
anytime there's an "and" in legal writing, it
That's
means
what you're
you have this set and
you have
this.
to meet both of those measures.
And you have to meet both of them or all of them.
Yeah.
If it said or, then obviously you're talking conjunctive versus disjunctive language here. And it says or nonverbal and that interferes with, and then you get to B. So you can see the end of the sentence on B is or. So it means it must be unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature that is physical, verbal, or nonverbal, and one of A, B, or C. I guess you could say C creates an intimidating, offensive, or hostile environment is always there, but if there's any unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature, that is sexual harassment. Just plain and simple. I don't see why we need to have orders.
I think what it does, it allows the school district to add it into the program. So unfortunately, we see a lot of most sexual harassment that we see in a school district does happen online. Right? And so what we're saying, there was sexual harassment that impacted the school. And so that's where we say not only was it sexual harassment, it interfered with the school, so that's how we get involved with it.
Sure. But I mean, there you're getting into jurisdictional.
Oh, yeah, well,
questions.
absolutely, yeah.
That's like saying if somebody's using drugs off of school property on a Saturday in their house, we have no jurisdiction over that.
unless they come to the game, right? And unless they, and that's
Well,
what I'm
but
saying.
then they're at
Yeah.
school, and
Yeah,
they're.
and then it interferes with the operations of the district, and that's what we say there.
But okay.
Yeah, I know, I think I totally get what you're saying, like, and, but you know, and that's one of them is that, you know, I would think that it gives us the ability to not only say, yes, not only did that occur, but here's where it affects us here at school, and we're able to kind of jump in and do something. So not only was it unwelcome and sexual, it happened, just because you know somebody from school doesn't mean that, right, so, anyway.
So Dustin, would you prefer to say something like, and that may, and then have that statement, or B or C? Is that what
Well,
you?
I think saying, and that may include, is fine. I just think it's totally unnecessary to have any of that if you have the first sentence. But it doesn't hurt anything to have it like this. I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah. I think it's more for parents and their
Should
understanding.
it, does it mean or at the end of A?
No.
No.
No, because when you've got them separated by the semicolons, that or is going to apply to all of A, B, and C. So it would, the reading of it would be those first issues there in the first sentence and one of the three. You don't have to have the or after the A.
Okay, so then we want unwelcome conduct of sexual nature that is physical, verbal, or non-verbal, and that may interfere with students' educational activity, program interfere, and then except for at the end of B, I don't want that or there, correct? Is that what you're saying?
No, we want.
No,
Oh,
that's.
we do? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Or creates intimidating offensive or hostile environment, and so you're good with that now?
Yeah.
Better?
It's, again, I just don't think any of it's necessary, but it's fine. If that's the way the Oregon law defines it,
Yeah.
that's okay. Really, that's what the question was, is it defined for a reason that way?
Yeah.
And if that's the way the legislature has said this is the way it needs to be defined, then that's fine. I just think it's stupid. That they put limitations on what sexual harassment is and isn't,
Yeah.
or at least put these limitations on.
And that's the only way I could think about it, is with kind of jurisdiction of the school district, what we can kind of get involved in, so. The next one is right after 3, it's that next sentence. Sexual harassment does not include conduct that is necessary because of the job, to be able to see that on there. And again, and you know, we talked about that, is it's more kind of protection of staff that's doing their job, or if we have somebody coming in, like giving a physical, like we have, you know, some, like Malheur Health will come in and do physical skills. A student can allege, like, well, they told me to do the physical, I had to do that, it's not sexual harassment. Like, that's part of their job. If they go above their job, obviously that's something different, but just saying that in this, like, it does not include conduct that is necessary for a job. You know, Mr. DeLong was going through the health curriculum and he talked about that. That made me uncomfortable. That's sexual harassment. That's actually not. And so it really is a protection of the staff and the people that we contract out there. So.
Hard thing is to build a double negative in. You got sexual harassment does not include conduct necessary, and I get that, protects contractors, agents, volunteers, that's good, but then it says if the conduct is not the product of sexual intent or a person finding another person or another person's actions offensive because of that person's sexual orientation or gender identity. So it is not sexual harassment so long as it does not result from sexual intent or a person finding another person. That's just really cumbersome.
It really is.
It is, yes, it is.
We read that several times, like understanding exactly what that means. And so no, that's the exact area we focused on today. Was like, what does that mean? So, suggestions on it to make it kind of cleaner for people.
Well, what do you want it to say? I mean, you guys discussed it a lot and you decided this is what it says. So beyond the protections for contractor, agent, or volunteer, I totally agree with from sexual harassment at the very beginning to the comma after volunteer. Like, I totally get that. What's the rest of that mean? What was the intent behind Or what did you guys come up with the intent should be? Maybe that's the,
So, and I think it is, we talked about that, if it has to do with kind of that gender kind of questions and somebody's actions based on that, saying, is I think it helps protect those things, and saying that, again, you know, we went in the weeds a little bit to try to explain a situation where it might occur in that, like if you're doing the physicals, right? And, right, I mean, you know, they identify as one way, we're trying to give a physical another way, like those kind of things. But that also might be addressed in the first line as well. And so that's what we were trying to think about. We tried to say, how does this apply, and where could this apply to us? And I mean, very loosely, that's what we came up with. And I couldn't honestly tell you exactly what that means, where we would apply it. And so.
I think I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not the way I originally read that, but no, I think that language is fine.
And I really do think is like that is if somebody makes a comment like, you know, like, oh, you know, young man come over, like, I'm not a man, I'm a girl, like you are sexually harassing me because of my gender identity. You know, I mean, just saying that's not the intent, that we weren't trying to mislabel or miss you. And again, very loosely trying to find like what would that even look like, and so that's kind of the best we can come up with. Are you okay with it at that?
For right now. I might
Yeah.
think about
No,
it.
yeah, absolutely. As you can see, like, I mean, and that's it.
I don't like the language, but I don't have
Yeah.
good, I should have looked at it before this meeting.
But
It makes your head spin.
it really does. The way it's written, it really does to get through that. And so, and the last area that we looked on there was adding the,
We added the hotline number.
adding the hotline number for reporting. So where was that at? That was,
Same page.
Under ordinary procedures on that same page.
oh, it's of course the same page. Oh, okay, and then, yeah, I'm sorry. Part of it is, and this is kind of our feedback and opinion on there, especially when we're trying to put in the state for, is it an OCR complaint? Is it a complaint to TSVC? Is it, because we have, Gina, who's our Title IX coordinator, right? When she gets something like that, I mean, then she starts connecting where it absolutely needs to go on it. And so she would be the avenue we want parents to talk, unless they want to make their own complaint, right? But who is it? Is it an OCR complaint? Is it an ODE complaint? Is it, I mean, so that's where we were kind of like, where, what do we actually put in there, and saying it would be best if we directed them toward a Title IX person and say, hey, actually it's here now, or it's here, especially with all the changes. That's why we thought it'd be best to just leave it at the school person. So anyway, that was our opinion. Go.
Well, so that, my thought on that was more along the lines of, are we considering sexual harassment abuse? Depends on the level of sexual harassment, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
But if it does raise to the level of abuse, then our Title IX coordinator, Gina, wouldn't be the right person for a teacher to report that to. Yes, report it to teacher, but there is also a state hotline that has to be reported to if it's sexual harassment to the point of abuse. And I think that should be in here, so a teacher doesn't pick this up and say, hey, we have got, it doesn't matter if it's a child abusing another child. The statutes don't make a distinction between that. So if you've got one child doing something sexually heinous to another one, that may be harassment, but that's also abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so calling this number will not satisfy the statutory requirement.
I think what it does is it connects that person, because there's a lot of the gray area in there, and just saying, help me figure this out. And then Gina tells them, directs them, you need to call DHS. That is a report you need to do right now. Or, and it could absolutely be, we need to call the cops in here immediately. And so that's
Right.
part of the issue, is there are so many different avenues and numbers is having one central spot so we can help direct. That was our intent on that.
No, and I appreciate it.
There's also a sexual abuse
policy. Yeah.
that has its own stipulations, so if there is a designation between harassment and abuse, then there
Okay.
are those two different. If it's questionable, then Gina would do her investigation and then, okay, this is where it needs to go to.
And so then does our sexual abuse policy reference the
I
statutory
believe it does, I'm
hotline?
trying to look it up.
Okay, as long as it does, that's fine. If we're saying, all right, take it to Gina, Gina will make a determination, is this abuse or not? Most mandatory reporters do have somebody they can call who will give them that. I know a lot of churches have a legal department that tells them you have to report this or that doesn't raise to abuse. Teachers here have Gina. Lawyers have bar ethics council that they can call and run a hypothetical by them and they can say, yes, that's abuse, report it, or no. So there are helps, but as long as we have a policy that says, if it's abuse, call the state hotline.
Usually if we're defining it as abuse of looking at those things, like it does take a larger kind of sense of like, Gina, help me figure this out. What is that measure? Let's look at policy. Like it's,
Well, but that's tough too, because the statute says, I hate to quote the statute without having it in front of me, but it says.
we don't know, so go ahead.
Well, okay, quote, it says, no, but it talks about if you come across that abuse may have occurred. It doesn't say you make a determination abuse did occur.
Right.
It's just, it may have occurred. And so if it is in a teacher's mind, this may be abuse, they have an obligation to report it, not just to Gina, but to the statutory hotline.
Yep.
But again, if it's in our sexual abuse one, then I think that covers this. But if it's not, we've got to have that in our policy. So if a teacher has any question in their mind, they call the hotline. Better to report something that looked like abuse and wasn't than to not report something that was abuse.
Yeah, because during the training, they say, you're not the investigator,
Right.
we are. So just call it into us, we'll investigate. And if there's nothing, then great. At least something was said about it, rather than live with the rest of your life knowing you didn't report it when you should have.
Right. Our kids need to be protected, but our teachers do too. The teachers need to know. I can turn to the policy and it will tell me if there may have been abuse, I call the hotline. It's their licensing, it's their livelihoods on the line if they don't.
And I think it also protects here, I had to, make a call last year on a possibility, right? So I agree, you're like, well, why did you, it's my job that there's a possibility, it was with a staff member, right? And so that guy reported, again, nothing happened. But you know what I'm saying, so it protects us as well. Also, it's very clear, like, if may, we will be reporting those things. And so it protects the students, but also the staff and all that. Perfect. Those were the three areas.
I'll look at that other one.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll have to go to her again.
You ask for it?
Thank you. Any other questions on those? And my marathon session. Thank you. So Monday we'll have those policies as well come up for vote this time. And we've had our couple readings on both of them, and I think we're ready to go. You'll see, like I said, you'll see that one change in GMA, but other than that, we're pretty good. And I'll look at that allergy as well for instance.
The next item then is the board scholarship. Okay, you've got the packet in front of you. Last year, let's see, there are 15 or 16 applicants this year. Last year, what we decided was we would base our decision on 25% GPA, 25% the letters of recommendation, 25% on the student's essay, and 25% on community involvement and activities. Does that sound okay?
Aren't there some that we can throw out because they aren't complete?
Yes, I was gonna say that, too, that we only accept complete applications, and Megan gave us all the applications, complete or not complete, so
Megan, do you have a rundown of which ones are incomplete?
The last 5 in your packet are being
Okay.
So that would leave 10 of ours.
Yeah. Okay, and then, last year for our reference, we gave 5 scholarships, $1,000 please. Okay.
No,
We gave them each
we
one.
didn't give them, that's what we're recommending we go back to, if that's what you guys choose.
Oh, okay.
Go back to what?
It was originally 5 scholarships for 1,000 apiece, and the last couple of years it's been divvied up
With everybody.
evenly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So out of those 10, we need to weed out 5.
if that's what you guys choose. It's just a.
I like
If
your
that's-
recommendation.
I'm good with that.
And so we're gonna do based off the scale, the weighted scale we were talking about.
Yeah, that scale, and then, rank your, rank your choices. What, Megan, 1 through 5 or 1 through?
Just
1
give
through
me
10?
if you just give me your top 5, and then if we have some that are,
Okay, and
that
give
are
your top,
high, then I can.
your top
come back
5
to you.
then to,
Out of 1 through 10.
And if you notice, Megan went through and redacted all those things, just so it is kind of a blind.
And when do we do this by? Tonight?
no, by given to Megan by the 18th, which will be a week from this coming Friday.
And you said to written statement, volunteer activities, and what else?
SA, GPA, letters of recommendation.
Just
So
get it in our
25%.
top 5. You can just email that to me.
Yeah.
Written statement, the essay, volunteer activities, GPA, and letters of recommendation.
And then just send your top 5, since they're all numbered, correct?
Yep.
Send your top 5 to Megan by Friday the 18th. Okay? Any other questions on that one? Board updates. I'll let Ryan give you some legislative updates
I did.
quickly.
Quickly, I will. Again, this is very, very quick. Just for you guys to know, I know we've been talking about it, and following. Here's some couple of the educational updates for you guys. This is a legislative timeline key dates that we have. And if you see, we're really at that April 9th. The first chamber deadline is coming up on Wednesday. And so this is, so as you can see, we're kind of all the way, we're about halfway through this timeline. We're looking at some bills are really starting to come out of those committees and starting to go to some votes. But I picked out a couple big ones that may or may not have an impact on education. One is that accountability bill, and it's the governor's accountability bill that she put out there. That is not only says, how are we going to keep school districts accountable for achievement, and what happens if they're falling short of that measure. And so there's a lot, and so that's HB 2009, and I would suggest if you guys want to, it's already gone through like 3 or 4 different drafts, because there's been questions about what does the assessments look like, how are we going to measure it. SBAC in one of versions, SBAC wasn't even a measure, which they hold us accountable by. So there's just a lot of things in there, but know that this one's important because of it changes our requirements and those things we have to meet by the state. There will be, in my opinion, this will be quick, there will be an accountability measure, just how it looks like is the question at this point. So, so that one's out there, that's the governor's accountability bill. Those are what I just talked about. The places in that accountability bill, and I'll give this all to you and I'll share it with you so you have it for your own things. But again, a lot of these things have already changed. But so if you can see, like that's new metrics, the interim assessments in there. The next one that we want to look at is our labor and bargaining bills. And the first one is Senate Bill 916. Essentially, it's for unemployment benefits for striking workers. It's after the first week of a strike, they're able to claim unemployment. And if, as you can kind of see, what impact that might have on school districts, right? And so, so that would be a new thing coming up. Again, I don't know how that's looking, kind of swinging which way on there, but obviously that is going to be. luckily we're not in any negotiations right now, but it could change the way people approach negotiations and contracts with unions. The next one is 3652, class size as a mandatory subject to bargaining.
That one's been out there several times,
Yeah.
and
And so as you guys can kind of guess, is that when you put that in there, that could have a big implication on our budget. Right? Especially if you look like at Portland or Beaverton, they're saying you have to bargain that, and all of a sudden they have to, based on that, right, they have to hire 100 new teachers. I mean, obviously it's something that could have a big impact on school districts' budgets, so that's why it's in there. And it's just a subject of bargaining. It doesn't say it's required to be in there, and we have to listen to those things, essentially. The House Bill 3357 is a staff injury reporting system, looking for basically it's directing ODE to create a system that any staff injury based on students that hurt staff or staff for that, there's a system now that will report that to. That one's kind of not getting as much press right now, but anyway, so that's just something with education. I just want to put that in there. The funding related bill, Senate Bill 849, is PERS. It's that unfunded liability, maybe buying that down for some districts in that. The SPED funding, House Bill 2953. This one's a big one, is that right now we get 11% reimbursement. I think we're at 13% is what we're at with SPED, right? Is that correct? And so taking that cap off or limiting that cap to 15%. And so what it would do, so that 2% that we're not getting funded for right now, that you'd get funded for that 2%. So, but again, and there's also talk of taking a cap off completely, which would not mean much more for us, but big districts, a lot of that new money that you see would be going there. Senate Bill 5515 is, I wanted to talk about 3014 on the bottom. Sorry, so this one right here is facilities funding for districts that struggle to pass bonds. This one's very specific to especially school districts that like the fires and things like that can pass bonds or having issues that basically for facilities trying to find money. That's where that one would come in at. We're in a pretty good place right now, right? All of our bonds are passed. We're doing really, really well. And so the last one, there's two more of this, I'm sorry, the summer learning bills. So it looks like anticipate a new summer learning bill, $30 to $35 million comes in, and we go to school districts for summer school.
but should that happen, it still keeps migrant summer schools separate from
Yes.
the other.
How those would interact, I do not have an answer for you. So that would be a question. It's like full day migrant, half. Again, one of the answers I got was, well, just have summer school in July. I was like, nobody wants that. Anyway, so so that's a summer learning bill. So it's going to be a lot more money for us to fund summer school. So and that was something, especially even in our surveys that we got for strategic planning. It's like summer school is for everybody, not just our migrant students, and so that would help us fund something like that. And this is the early literacy bill, and you saw in there, and not only is it going to possibly add in some more requirements for that bill, like you have to use a certain curriculum, you have to, right now, you have to be trained, only certain, like you have to have a specific training for early literacy skills for those people. IAs need that training as well, so that's what that early literacy bill looks like. It's 3040, and I think it puts a little more money to it as well. So that's the same thing that Kenny what I just talked about. So that is it for your legislative updates. And again, there's a lot, like there have never been this many bills propositioned before ever in the history of Oregon, ever. So there's a lot out there. I tried to kind of pick some that would be very applicable to us here at the school district and might have an impact on us. Again, there's so many in there. And so if you do have any questions or want to read more into it, please let me know. My job is to track these and say, what is that impact? Crystal, what do you think in here, right? And so when we made our budget, we look at all these bills and we look at the funding tied to them. And so there's just a lot of work around it. We want to make sure you guys are informed. So that is it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
I asked Ryan to do that because there are so many of these this time. that accountability one is the one that.
That's a scary one.
It's worrisome.
There's a lot of gray in that
Yes.
bill, so.
Okay, so if you have questions, ask Ryan. Okay, the only other two things, or three things. The rural scholarship, I talked to Kristen Miles, and I also talked to Ryan. We'd like to move our meeting with Kristen to the 22nd of May. That is, I believe, a Wednesday. The reason she has that day open, but it's also after the election. So we'll know for sure, you know, who is going to be on the board. So if that works for all of you, I will let Kristen know tomorrow. So if it does not work for you, let me know.
That's the Wednesday before
If you have to look at home
Yes.
at your schedule, just give me a call tomorrow morning or send me an email or a text. Otherwise, I will let her know that,
I think that's we said a 2.5 hour one, is that
Mhm.
correct? That's what we put on it, so it'd be from 6 to 8:30.
so,
Yeah,
and
like today.
also, if you have not gotten your, what was it, the questionnaire into her,
Oh, yeah, the survey.
yeah, the survey, please get it into her. So,
I think right now she still only has 5, so.
yeah, that was what she told me, was she only had 5. So, the mandatory training that we had to do on the public meetings law, we all have to do that once per term. So for the 5 of us who are up for reelection, please make sure that you've done it in case you aren't reelected. or
So does that
whatever.
mean if we are reelected, we have to do it again after?
Every
Yes,
year.
it does.
Yeah,
Every term.
Yeah.
right,
Is it every
once
year?
per term.
No, it's every term,
Oh,
Once a term.
yeah.
And you can do it online. It doesn't take long. And then just send the information that you've taken it to Megan, so she can keep her records for us.
I think Mrs. Mornacker just took a screenshot, correct? So like,
Yes,
like
that's
just like,
what-
it's all done, and then just text
Yeah.
it, might be the easiest way to do it, so.
Yeah.
I think, did you, and then Susie had her certificate on there as well, so, I mean, just make it easy for us.
Yeah, it's just get it done. The other thing is the Statement of Economic Interest, the SEI. It is due by the 15th of April. So that's just a reminder to let you all know. And if you have trouble doing it, call their hotline. There was a very nice gentleman who led me through it. I was like,
I'm happy to help.
Yeah. You're on
I
camera,
was
so
like-
you can't just say that like, yeah. And Crystal was more than happy to sit down with you and help. She actually, and just even for mine, just as peace of mind, like, hey, you know, I just went through like developed and just a great resource. So it's by April 15th. So.
We do have 3 board members that have completed the SEI already.
Do
And
we
then
need no more?
Ryan and myself, so just need 4 more.
okay, so it's just a reminder, get it done. So, does anyone have anything else they want to bring up, or do we want to?
Just one thing, they both rolled their eyes at me. Don't forget May 5th is that CTE dinner at Four Rivers. That'll take place of our study session in May. Well, we might still have one at 6 o'clock before the board meeting, but anyway. So May 5th at Four Rivers will be that CTE celebration.
Okay, and you will send out.
Yep, we'll resend all that stuff out.
An invite, so.
Yep.
But that is May 5th.
Yep.
So
I'll
we're all
resend
supposed
that
to go to that?
I don't
Huh?
I don't know, a celebration for what? I don't know.
CTE. So they go over all the awards, the certifications that each school gets. I know that, and it's really a celebration of welding, hosts all of those CTE programs.
Can anybody tell me what the HOSA stands for?
Health, occupation,
Service.
yeah.
Association.
Okay, I Googled it the other day and it came up with nothing. It told me what HOSA is, but not what HOSA stands for.
Yeah, sorry. We all had that part, the first 2 parts we got it. So.
Health, occupation, Relations Students of America.
Oh, students of it.
Formerly known as.
Oh, that's formerly, I don't know.
Future health professional. These are the older guys now.
Did you say it's future now? What's the fuck?
says HOSA.
Sorry, I need to go home.
Yeah, it is 6 to 8 on the 5th. It's from 6 o'clock, and it's at Four Rivers, and if we would like to, I will be more than happy to drive a van over, and so I'll just get everybody there if you want to. So, Susie, if you want to do it, if you want to ride over to the Four Rivers.
Only if we stop the birds on the way.
Yeah. I can neither confirm nor deny that, Susie. So.
I know that.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other comments or anything, all I would like to do is remind you about the scholarship applications, getting that information to Megan by a week from this coming Friday. And otherwise, if there's nothing else,